Have you heard about Monster Week? It's an annual community event created and organized by Jenny D and Pointy Hat to bring together TTRPG creators on YouTube, and this year's theme is dragons.
Let's put one of those beefy arms back on him for good measure. That looks really good.
I'm going to tell you how to run different types of dragons as epic big bads. My name is GM Jim from Wizards and Wordslingers, and let's get into it. Since the game is called Dungeons & Dragons, I've found that people do enjoy encountering dragons while playing. It's like that meme of Leo DiCaprio pointing at the TV, you know the one I mean. But running a dragon villain can be challenging. You want it to be epic. You want the dragon to be not only physically terrifying, but also dastardly and ruthless and scheming, out there making moves. This video will be in two parts. First, I'm going to talk about general villain stuff, then we'll dig into various types of dragons, the kinds of plots they have, and how to run different flavors of dragon for different types of campaign plots. But before that, let me give you some credentials to establish my expertise here.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm the author of over 24 novels, most of them thrillers. Thrillers are all about the BBEG and how the hero reacts to that BBEG's moves. So this is a topic I have studied extensively. In fact, for your homework, I invite you to watch the classic 1980s action movie Die Hard, but watch it from villain Hans Gruber's perspective. What is his plan? How does he react when hero John McClane intervenes in that plan? How does he pivot?
Put down the gun and give me my detonators.
At a basic level, the most important quality a villain can have is that they want something. And not just want it, but be willing to go to certain lengths to get it. Often extreme lengths. Generally, villains want power, respect, love, or revenge. Specifically, think of what your villain wants, because it becomes the fundamental basis of conflict in your game. Is the desire to reclaim a stolen family heirloom? Is it to exact revenge on a rival? Maybe the goal is to undo an event from the past, like to resurrect a lost loved one. Consider the campaign world and especially your party's backgrounds and their plans so you can create something that purposefully clashes with those. Once we know what the villain wants and why they want it, we can move on to the villain's actual plan. It could be a 5-step plan, or 9, or 13, or whatever. I'm a firm believer in player agency and letting the story go where it needs to go. But I also think it's good to write out the villain's ideal path to achieve their goals. In a perfect world with zero intervention from any pesky heroes, this is exactly how the plan would proceed. Then write out all the steps. If you know Dungeon World terms, this would be called a campaign front. So let's say our villain is a scheming adult green dragon named Dartharax. Okay, we're gonna go with that. So Dartharax lives in the woods near a port town, and he wants to control shipping and create legions of pirates to go treasure hunting for him to fuel a land war. So he wants power and money, basically. Dartharax prefers not to get his hands dirty, so he has recruited a large humanoid criminal gang in the city. And so here's the intended 6-step plan. 1. Direct the gang to assassinate key members of the town council and intimidate dock owners. 2. Send pirates to commandeer sea vessels to add to his fleet. 3. Once the fleet is large enough, wage war on the nearest port town. 4. Send cultists under the captured port town into a cave complex to retrieve an ancient artifact. 5. Use that artifact to magically enrich ships and armies. 6. Expand outward using found treasure to fuel the war. And again, this is the ideal plan, not a set-in-stone campaign blueprint. It can and should change based on events within the campaign because the PCs are going to intervene. And when they do foil the baddie, the plan has to change. The villain pivots and tries something else. When the party finds out that Dartharax is sending ships to invade that port town in step 3, they're probably going to try to stop it. Maybe they'll fight back the invading ships in a massive battle on the docks. And so how does our evil green dragon react to that? How does he react to losing? Maybe instead of an all-out assault, he changes course to instead send spies and infiltrators to the town to retrieve the artifact in secret. and the players will probably intervene there again. It's not your job as the DM to figure out how they're going to intervene, you just need to make sure the party has clues in their path. When foiled, the villain always pivots and tries a different tactic repeatedly until their last breath.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee.
As long as they continue to want the thing they want. At some point, the party will figure out there's a green dragon puppeting this crime gang. Now maybe the villain's plan pivots to becoming personal, sending assassins directly at the PCs. Oh, what's that? The party got the jump on Dorkarax and killed him despite your long-term plans? Well, now maybe a couple other nearby dragons with their own designs swoop in to fill the power vacuum. How are your players going to react to that? Think about bad guy Hans Gruber from Die Hard. What's his plan? 1. Infiltrate the Nakatomi Plaza. 2. Neutralize security. 3. Take hostages. 4. Break into the vault. 5. Steal the money. 6. Escape scot-free. But what happens is, during step 4, John McClane intervenes, so Gruber has to pivot and send his goons directly after John, which delays the vault heist. Oh, one last thing I want to say in general about villains before we get to the dragon specifics part, and that is how to make your villains super evil the easy way. This is a 2-step process, but it's very simple. The first step is making a player or the whole party care about a particular noun in your world, or finding one they already care about. That noun could be an NPC, a place, or a thing, but make them really care about it. Then the second step is put that thing in jeopardy. Because here's an important lesson I learned in writing all those thriller novels. Emotional connections create stakes. Seriously, like write that down or something, because that is the wisest thing you're going to hear from me today. We care more about loved ones in jeopardy than we do strangers in jeopardy. That's just true in life and in D&D. So have your dragon's minions kidnap that lovable old NPC shopkeeper. Have the BBEG burn down that PC's hometown or deface their beloved shrine. If you want to motivate the PCs into action, make your villains' ugly schemes tug on the party's heartstrings. It works every time. Now, before we dive into covering the specific dragons, could you hit the like button and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it makes sure that you see my content. Okay, now about different types of specific dragons. The thing is, dragons are people too. Wait, let me explain.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Dragons are people in the way Greek gods are people. Oodles of power, but with all the flaws and foibles of humanity built in. Dragons are not far realm aberrations with unknowable intentions. Dragons typically want the same things humanoids want. If they're villains, they want power, respect, revenge, or love. Remember that? If you want to run a mixed urban/wilderness adventure with a crime or espionage angle, my favorite choice is the green dragon, like I gave in that example above. Green dragons are very devious and like to use espionage or spy networks to accomplish their goals. If you want the kind of conspiracy plot where someone is pulling the strings from the shadows, Green Dragon is a good choice. Green dragons are real G's who move in silence like lasagna. Red dragons are the classic chaotic evil menace. They make great tyrants, so if you want to do a topple the king kind of plot, this is a solid choice. Red dragons view everyone else as inferior and will scorch the earth to gain power and influence. These dragons also work well with a kind of kaiju Godzilla plot. Red dragon coming to destroy the town, what do we do? For a horror campaign, you can't go wrong with a black dragon. A black dragon's favorite movie is definitely Saw. These guys are less interested in power than they are domination and spreading suffering, cruelty, sadism, also probably the dragon type most likely to make enemies of other dragons. That's handy info to keep in your back pocket. You can also go undead like a Draco Lich, but there's no low CR version. The nice thing about most of the base dragons is you've got ancient, adult, and young variations as BBEGs for different tiers of play. White dragons tend to live in frigid regions, and I think they work well for an environmental kind of story. They're fierce predators, so what if a very hungry white dragon begins hunting outside of her normal territory, upsetting the food chain, causing problems, which draws the PCs in to investigate? Blue dragons make me think of the Lannisters from Game of Thrones. They're arrogant, conniving, paranoid, and also charismatic. Like red dragons, these guys are all about empire building, but they do it more through systematically taking down foes than by brute force. And don't think you can't use a metallic dragon as a BBEG too. Good characters can lose their way, right? Just look at Walter White. This works great because you can introduce this dragon early on in the campaign as an ally. Then they experience some kind of corruption and become an enemy later on. Say a lawful good gold dragon newly discovers an ancient text and misinterprets it, and starts doing bad things as a result. Or any good dragon could come under the influence of some more powerful creature and break bad. I love these kinds of plots because remember before what I said about emotional connections creating stakes? I once introduced my players to a lovable copper dragon named Rusty who talked like a doofy Sesame Street character. "Oh, hello there, adventurers. I'm just building a bridge over the river to make it safe for you humans to cross." My players fell in love with this NPC instantly, of course. I was planning to have him get mind-controlled by a nasty villain later and do bad things, but the campaign went in a different direction and it never happened. Such is the life of a dungeon master. To wrap it up, the number one thing to remember about dragons is make them epic. Don't just say to your players, okay, now a dragon appears. Talk about the rush of wind against their faces from the beating of enormous wings. Talk about the ground rumbling when the creature lands, or how the dragon's roars makes the character's stomach churn. Talk about the scent of smoke in the air, like leftover breath weapon causticity. Really engage your players' senses to help them understand the scope and power of these mighty creatures. Because it's half the name of the game we're playing, so make them good. And until next time, I'm GM Jim, and this is Wizards and Wordslingers. Laters.